Welcome to your free English lesson online. I'm your English teacher, Chris. Today we're talking about 8 ways to use the simple present tense in English at work. The simple present tense is the heart of English verbs. It's the tense that most of us learn first, and there are so many things you can do with it. The important thing is to know when you should use the simple present tense and not a different tense. What I want to do in this video is to look at different ways to use the simple present tense. A great way to do this is to look at how we use this tense in our work. There are many uses for this tense at work. For this video, we will use a coffee shop as an example of a workplace. Now you can use the simple present tense in the same way in many different workplaces. It just happens I like coffee shops, so I picked that as our example. The first way to use the simple present tense is to talk about facts, things that are not likely to change. It could be facts about the company you work for. In our example, that's a coffee shop, so we could say, our coffee shop is in Sacramento, California. We have 15 employees. Melinda is the store manager. We serve coffee, tea, and pastries. We used the simple present tense to talk about several facts about our workplace, including the location, the number of employees, who the manager is, and what we sell. We can also use the simple present tense to talk about another type of fact, people's jobs. For example, I am an assistant manager. I make coffee drinks and supervise staff. Peter works as a barista. He also schedules musicians to play on Thursday nights. We used the simple present tense to talk about people's job titles and work responsibilities. An important part of mastering the simple present tense is conjugating or forming it correctly. Luckily, there aren't many irregular forms or complicated structures as with other verb tenses. We use the base form of the verb when talking about I, you, and plural subjects such as we and they. For example, I work, you work, we work, and they work. We add an S to the end of the base form of the verb when talking about one man, one woman, or one thing. So for example, he works, she works, it works. To speak English well, it's important to be able to correctly form verbs in the simple present tense. If you're not good at this yet, I recommend that you practice. I'll put a link in the description to a video series I have on the simple present tense. The first way to use the simple present tense in English at work was to talk about facts. The second way is for describing schedules, both for the business and for the people who work there. For example, our shop is open every day from 6 o'clock a.m. to 4:30 p.m. On Thursdays, we are open until 8 o'clock because we have live music. I work Tuesday to Saturday from 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Monique works Monday, Tuesday, and Friday afternoons. If you noticed, 2 of the sentences used forms of the verb be. Be is one of the verbs that is irregular in the simple present tense. It's important to know both the full form and the contractions. Being comfortable using the contractions is key to speaking English in a way that sounds more authentic. English speakers prefer to use contractions. Instead of saying I am, say I'm. Instead of saying you are, say you're. Instead of saying he is, say he's, and so on. We said the simple present tense is used to talk about facts and schedules. A third way to use the simple present tense is to talk about habits, things that happen repeatedly. We can use the simple present to talk about habits of the workplace and habits of employees. For example, our coffee supplier usually comes by on Wednesday mornings. It's always busy on weekdays between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Sometimes there are leftover pastries at the end of the day. Melinda occasionally leaves early to pick up her daughter from school. We want to use the simple present tense to talk about things at work that happen on a regular basis. In addition to facts, schedules, and habits, A fourth way to use the simple present tense at work is for workplace policies. The rules of the workplace are often written in the simple present tense. Here are some examples. Restrooms are only for customers. Employees get a 30-minute lunch break. The staff who close the store are responsible for cleaning and refilling supplies. And pets are not allowed in the store. Well, perhaps this cat is an exception. You can see how the simple present tense is used to talk about rules and policies at your workplace. There are some things we don't usually talk about using the present progressive verb tense. We use the simple present tense to talk about these things instead. One of these is talking about wants and needs. We usually use the simple present tense to talk about the wants and needs of the shop, the staff, and the customers. For example, we need more large coffee cups. He needs to sweep the floor before closing the shop. Maria wants to take the day off on Friday. The customer wants skim milk in her latte. Remember to use the simple present tense for talking about wants and needs. A sixth way to use the simple present tense in English at work is to talk about things we have or own, things we possess. For example, our store has 2 espresso machines. A cappuccino has steamed milk and a layer of milk foam. Monique has 4 hours of overtime this week. Peter owns an old scooter. Have is the other verb that is irregular in the present tense. We say I have, you have, we have, and they have, but we say he has, she has, and it has. Have is a verb that we use often, so it's good to be familiar with these forms. The seventh way to use the simple present tense in English at work is for verbs of the senses, such as see, hear, taste, feel, and smell. This is another type of verb that tends to be talked about in the simple present rather than the present progressive tense. For example, he sees steam coming from the espresso machine. I smell fresh baked muffins. The coffee tastes delicious. Remember, if you're talking about things that you presently see, hear, taste, smell, or feel, then you want to use the simple present tense. And for our last way to use the simple present tense in English at work, we have verbs of emotion and opinion. These would be verbs such as like, love, hate, and hope. We also tend to use these verbs in the simple present tense and not in the present progressive tense. Let's look at some examples. I love coffee and pastry. She prefers iced coffee. My children love chocolate chip cookies, but they hate oatmeal cookies. So that's it. That's 8 ways to use the simple present tense in English at work. If you'd like a link to a free PDF, it's in the description. What about you? Do you have a question about English? If so, tell me about it in the comments. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.